As of the end of 2021, I have ridden 1,157 different roller coasters. 994 are made of steel. 163 were made of wood. In 2021, I visited 25 new theme parks across the globe and rode 124 new roller coasters. 11 of those coasters cracked my top 100. In this two-part video, I will rank my top 100 favorite roller coasters in the entire world. This video will cover spots 100 through 51. This list will combine both wood and steel coasters into one list. I place rides assuming I'm in my favorite seat in the ride, and I also go by how the coaster is running for my most recent rides. I tend to prioritize rides with great airtime, strong pacing, and a beautiful setting. This list is my personal opinion. I don't expect anyone to have the same list as me. When comparing two rides, it comes down to which one is more fun for me. Number 100, Diamondback at Kings Island. This Balzer Mabyard Hypercoaster has an amazing setting as it goes deep into the woods. Diamondback's first half is some of the best sustained floater airtime you can experience on any coaster. The first drop and subsequent two camelbacks always keep me out of my seat for several seconds. The first few valleys can rattle, but it wasn't as shaky in 2021 as past years. The airtime in the second half may not be quite as strong as the first half because you lose some speed from the trims, but you'll still get decent floater airtime, and that final splash is an exciting visual. Number 99, Magnum XL200 at Cedar Point. The original full-circuit hypercoaster is much cruder than newer hypercoasters, but that's part of Magnum's charm. This Aero hypercoaster offers beautiful views and sustained floater airtime in the first half. The triangular-shaped bunny hills in the return run offer some of the most violent airtime in the world. Magnum tries to destroy your thighs. This coaster is a bit jerky, and the airtime is so strong it can sometimes be uncomfortable, but I love this ride's raw power. Number 98, Space Mountain at Disneyland. This indoor coaster is a delight. The onboard audio on the California version is amazing. Michael Giacchino's score really augments the sense of speed, along with the fans and starry sky. This one has barely any drops, but the turns are exceptional. If you have a heavy train, you careen through the second half at a really scary rate, and the resultant laterals are shockingly strong. Number 97, Alpengeist at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This B&M invert has a powerful first half. The gigantic first drop builds up a ton of speed, and then the first four inversions have some very sustained positive Gs. The Immelman causes me to gray out. The vertical loop tries to rip my legs off. And then the Cobra Roll has some insanely wild snaps into and out of the element. Alpengeist's second half is slowed down significantly by the mid-course, but the 0G roll still has some float, and the corkscrew is a little bit of whip. Number 96, Renegade at Valleyfair. This is one of GCI's best coasters. I love how this wood coaster incorporates several sustained floater hills into the layout, while also having the trademark quick pops of airtime that GCI is known for. Renegade holds its speed well through the layout, and as of when I rode it in 2019, it was still tracking smoothly. Number 95, Tremors at Silverwood. This Custom Coasters International creation has a really cool layout. The abundance of tunnels makes this an underrated night ride. This coaster also has a nice mix of forces. The bunny hills through the tunnels offer some great sustained floater airtime, and then the large drops also give some good airtime in the back. Then the main turnaround has some insane sustained laterals. There is a bit of a lull in the middle of the layout, but Tremors starts and finishes strong. Number 94, Rampage at Alabama Splash Adventure. This CCI wood coaster was underwhelming up front, but my back row ride was everything I could want. The first drop, second hill, and final two drops offer great ejector airtime in the back. You don't get that level of airtime elsewhere. The ride also has some sustained floater on the two giant camelbacks, and the minimal banking on the turnarounds also mixes in some nice laterals. The ride is also well taken care of and runs quite smoothly. Number 93, Mindblower at Funspot Kissimmee. This is an aggressive little ride. This Gravity Group wood coaster has a strong start with an ejector airtime filled drop, and a barrel roll with some great hang time. The rest of the coaster is filled with a flurry of bunny hills that will pop you out of your seat. This coaster has relentless pacing, but it is rather shaky. I talk about it more in a separate review, but this coaster would probably be 25 to 30 spots higher if it ran smoother. Number 92, Goliath at Six Flags Great America. This Rocky Mountain Construction topper track wood coaster may have a shortage of elements, but it certainly packs a punch. The massive first drop offers some incredible ejector airtime, the camelback launches you out of your seat, the dive loop has some crazy head choppers, and the zero-G stall blissfully levitates you out of your seat. The ride has nice snaps into and out of the elements. I just wish it had some extra bunny hills mixed in. Number 91, Max Force at Six Flags Great America. America's fastest accelerating coaster is an adrenaline rush. The compressed air launch is one of the best in the world. You instantaneously teleport down the launch track. The launch is quick and violent. The rest of the layout, while short, has a fun mix of elements. The dog tongue at the start and the dive loop at the end both offer good hang time. Then the high-speed barrel roll in the middle offers some wild laterals. I go into more detail in a separate review, but this is a short but oh so sweet launch coaster. Number 90, Surf Coaster Leviathan at Sea Paradise. This Togo creation blew me away in 2018. I went in expecting a tame jet coaster. The ride had a scenic location above the water, but the ride has some serious power to it. Every drop offered airtime, and then the coaster also mixed in some surprise laterals and forceful helixes. The ride was also quite long and shockingly smooth for a Togo. I go into more detail in a separate review, but this may be the most underrated coaster I've ever ridden. Number 89, Space Mountain at Magic Kingdom. The best coaster at Walt Disney World is a true classic. The dark space environment transforms this coaster with modest stats into a bona fide thrill ride. The four main drops all give good airtime in the back car, and the tight helixes towards the end are moderately forceful. The coaster is a bit jerky, but the super padded trains feel like couches, so they absorb the blows. I go into more detail in a separate review, but I think this coaster is underrated by enthusiasts. Number 88, Afterburn at Carowinds. This B&M invert is a mini Montu. The ride is very smooth, and the inversions are all great. The Batwing in particular stands out for its powerful positive Gs and strong whip, but the other four also shine. The vertical loop has good force to it, the Immelman has some snap, the zero-G roll is abrupt, and the final corkscrew really whisks you through it. Number 87, Dragon Challenge Chinese Horntail at Islands of Adventure. This B&M invert was super unique. Not only did it interact with the opposing blue track in its early years, but it had a bizarre layout. The two Immelmans were super forceful, and the remaining three inversions were snappy. Then I also loved the giant camelback early in the ride that offered some rare sustained airtime you rarely get on an invert. Number 86, Dragon Challenge Hungarian Horntail at Islands of Adventure. Most people preferred the red side, but I actually preferred the blue side. While this one did have a weaker finale, I preferred the inversions on this side. The zero-G roll was fast and furious, and the Cobra roll had some real snap to it. Then you had the same great near misses as the red side when it ran as dueling dragons. Both sides of this legendary coaster are sorely missed. Number 85, Cannibal at Lagoon. I cannot believe this coaster was built in-house. Cannibal feels like a supersized Gerstlauer Eurofighter. It has one of the world's best drops. I cannot believe how large this beyond vertical drop is. It starts with strong ejector before transitioning to floater. The rest of the ride is pretty strong too. The first two inversions are decent. The Immelman has some weak hang time, and the dive loop is whippy. Then the Lagoon roll is spectacular, and it offers some of the best hang time on any coaster. While this coaster may only have two standout elements in my opinion, it's pure fun and glass smooth. Number 84, Monster at Adventureland. This Gerstlauer Infinity Coaster is a ton of fun. The first drop offers some great ejector airtime, The dive drop has some floater airtime and strong laterals. The finish loop has some incredible hang time. The camelback has some weak airtime. The dive loop is whippy. And then the finale is enhanced, yes enhanced, by a trim brake. This trim slows you down and causes some crazy lateral hang time on the final turn and traditional hang time on the final corkscrew. This ride's varied layout is why I like it so much. Number 83, Copperhead Strike at Carowinds. This mock multi-launch coaster has pitiful launches, but everything else about the ride is great. The JoJo roll, 2 vertical loops, and cutback all offer some of the best hang time on any coaster. It is surprising how long you're suspended upside down. Then the coaster also has some great airtime. The hill after the first loop, the Stengel dive through the first loop, and the final bunny hill all aggressively launch you from your seat, and then the ride also has some smaller airtime moments peppered throughout its twisted layout. Number 82, New Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas. The original RMC hybrid conversion is one of the best prototypes ever. RMC placed their iBox track on an aging wooden roller coaster, and they transformed it into a smooth airtime machine. The first half has some strong ejector airtime on that steep first drop and on the lower speed hills. And then there are some wild overbanks too with some nice laterals. The second half doesn't have the traditional power of RMC's later coasters, but most hills will still pop you out of your seat, and this is one of the company's longest coasters. This coaster paved the way for RMC's later coasters, and it's still a respectable ride on its own for the reasons I talk about in a separate review. Number 81, Flying Aces at Ferrari World. This Intamin hypercoaster is often called Skyrush's sister, since it has many of the same traits. But Flying Aces is a much different ride. While Skyrush tries to eject you with some of the strongest ejector airtime in the world, Flying Aces tries to laterally eject you. This coaster has some of the strongest laterals on any ride. The lateral snaps from the non-inverting loop and S-bends will fold your body over. The ride does have a few airtime moments though, such as the ejector airtime filled first drop and the fast speed hill, but the laterals are what shines most for the reasons I talk about in a separate review. Number 80, Goliath at La Ronde. This B&M Mega Coaster is a floater airtime machine. While it's one of their smaller mega coasters, this B&M creation has a simple layout consisting of one camelback after another. There isn't even a fancy turnaround, and that's fine by me. Every hill has solid sustained floater airtime and it's glass smooth. Number 79, Behemoth at Canada's Wonderland. Canada's other B&M hypercoaster has more power to it. The larger drops hold the floater airtime longer, and the larger trains will pull you over the drops more forcefully. This one does have a slight rattle to it, but the airtime is so strong that I can look past it. Number 78, Taron at Phantasialand. This well-themed Intamin launch coaster is stunningly beautiful. Seeing Taron's convoluted layout weave its way through Klugheim is magical. It results in some fantastic near misses, and it makes the layout impossible to memorize. The LSM launches have some good power to them, and both the first half and second half start strong. Each one has a great sense of speed, while also mixing in some great airtime and laterals, sometimes simultaneously. I think both halves do fizzle out towards the end, but I love when a thrill coaster is themed like this, and I go into more detail in a separate review. Number 77, Wild Train at Fantasiana. This PAX creation looks like a family coaster. It's only 59 feet or 18 meters tall, yet it has stronger airtime than a lot of RMCs. Every single element is profiled super sharply, and it looks like a mistake from Planet Coaster. The drops are super steep, and they try to launch you into orbit. And the coaster are also some frightening head choppers. I did not dare raise my hands on this one. This coaster is smooth despite its janky appearance, and I love its power. I go into more detail in a separate review, but this ride is short but sweet. Number 76, Alpina Blitz at Nigloland. This mock coaster is their take on the Intamin Megalite, and it offers all sorts of airtime. The first drop in S-Hills in the middle of the ride bring the ejector airtime. The larger hills in the first lap have some nice floater airtime, and the final bunny hills have good flagector airtime. Add in the super comfortable mock trains and a grayout inducing turn after the first drop, and you have a winner. I go into more detail in a separate review, but this layout shows that good things can come in small sizes. Number 75, Pyrenees at Parque España. This B&M invert is a giant one, and it feels like a supersized Batman the ride. Both loops have some real power to them. The 0G roll is delightfully wild, and the Cobra roll violently snaps you about, and the final corkscrew is quite snappy. Then you also have that crazy powerful helix through the loop. Pyrenees is also pretty smooth, which makes it one of the better B&M inverts. Number 74, Katoon at Mirabilandia. Katoon does have the same things Pyrenees does well. Both coasters are large in scale and have 6 forceful inversions, but I give Katoon the edge for 2 reasons. 1, the first drop is superior. Katoon straightens out early, so you get some weak floater airtime in the back. 2, this ride is smoother start to finish, while Pyrenees has a little head banging in the Cobra roll. Number 73, Rorosaurus at Storyland. This coaster may be just 40 feet or 12 meters tall, but it has a dozen airtime moments, and they're strong airtime moments too. This junior Gravity Group wood coaster has more power than the other ones of the similar size. The finale in particular feels like the one in Steel Vengeance, as the 4 consecutive bunny hills aggressively fling you from your seat. I cannot believe a ride like this was built at a children's park, but as you see in my review, I am certainly not complaining. Number 72, Ruth Schabanen at Tivoli Gardens. This classic scenic railway coaster is super historic, and I love the mountain facade too. But you know what I love even more? Getting airtime like this coaster gives with barely any restraint. You have just a loose lap bar and no seat belts, so you really pop out of your seat on the drops in a sense, especially if you have an ambitious brakeman or brakewoman running the ride. Number 71, Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket at Universal Studios Florida. This Maurer coaster gets a lot of flack, but I genuinely love it. The ride does have a shimmy to it, but I can tolerate it. The ride has a bazillion brake runs, but I don't mind because the sharp ascents and descents deliver good pops of airtime. This coaster also has a solid first drop, some wonderful sustained floater airtime in the non-inverting loop, and 2 forceful helixes. Add in some of the best onboard audio of any coaster, and I always come off this ride with a giant smile on my face. I go into more detail in a separate review, but I really like this coaster. Number 70, Mindbender at Galaxyland. This indoor Schwarzkopf coaster looks monstrous. The ride has some super steep and devilishly twisted drops at the start that offer some great laterals. And then the 3 inversions are some of the most forceful of any coaster. All 3 are true grayout moments. The ride also has a surprise pop of airtime or 2, and a super disorienting final helix around a series of mirrors. If you're a fan of positive G's, this ride needs to be on your bucket list, and I talk about it more in a separate review. Number 69, Chimera at La Feria de Chapultepec. I never thought this coaster would run again, but Indiana Beach is rebuilding it for the 2022 season. This coaster is a smaller version of Mindbender, but it's even more powerful. La Feria ran this coaster without any brakes, so the final turns and helixes offered some very abrupt airtime pops, laterals, and positive Gs. In addition to the strong start like Mindbender, this ride comes close to pulling 6 Gs. Number 68, Ravine Flyer 2 at Waldameer. This Gravity Group creation has a super unique setting on a ravine and over a highway. The first half is one of the best of any coaster. The first drop is incredible with the sustained airtime, and then the bunny hills have a nice mix of floater airtime and speed. The second half does suffer from a lack of speed as you go back up the hill, but you can still get some weak pops of airtime up front. I go into more detail in a separate review, but this is the reason to visit Waldameer. Number 67, Boardwalk Bullet at Kemah Boardwalk. Yet another Gravity Group creation, Boardwalk Bullet has an impressively twisted layout. The first half is incredible. You have some wonderful drops loaded with airtime in the back car, plus a series of smaller hills that abruptly pop you out of your seat. The airtime does decrease in strength as the ride progresses, going to floater and weak pops, but the unpredictable layout is a pure joy, and I have a separate review going into more detail. Number 66, Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. This is my favorite GCI that I have ridden. Mystic Timbers has a fantastic setting in the woods, and the pacing is top notch. Mystic Timbers never slows down, and it's just one airtime hill after another. While none of the hills offer elite airtime, each one will quickly pop you out of your seat. And even though this is an out and back coaster, it mixes enough twists and turns to keep riders on their toes. I have a separate review, but this is the wood coaster I want to ride at night at Kings Island. Number 64, Colossus at Heidi Park. This was the original Intamin prefabricated wood coaster, and it has a lot of similarities to El Toro. The first drop isn't as steep, but it does give good ejector airtime still. The first two camelbacks offer incredible sustained ejector airtime, much like the ones in El Toro. Then the turnaround and middle section is similar to El Toro, offering some weak floater airtime at best. Colossus then differs, treating riders to a dreadfully boring helix midway through the ride that absolutely kills the pacing. The final bunny hills are a return to form as you get decent floater airtime, and you also have that giant stunning near miss with the flame monster. And since this coaster was recently retracked, it is glass smooth. Number 64, Storm Runner at Hershey Park. This Intamin accelerator coaster has the usually awesome hydraulic launch. It causes my stomach to drop from the power. And then you also have the top hat loaded with ejector airtime. But Storm Runner then treats its riders to a full layout. I love how this coaster winds its way through Pioneer Frontier. The valleys on this coaster have strong positive Gs, then the ride also mixes in some airtime pops, and the final two inversions are spectacular. The barrel roll has copious amounts of hang time, and the flying snake dive is super disorienting, while also delivering violent laterals. I go into more detail in a separate review, but this is America's best accelerator coaster. Number 63, Junker at Powerland. This Gerstlauer Infinity coaster does a lot of things well. The initial LSM launch is very powerful, and it slams you against your seat back. Then every single element offers good laterals with either airtime or hang time simultaneously. The top hat has the good ejector airtime, and the three inversions offer good hang time. This is one of the most underrated launch coasters in the world, and I talk about more in a separate review. Number 62, Medusa Steel Coaster at Six Flags Mexico. I need to add a disclaimer that I've never ridden this coaster at its full power. It was running slow wheels in 2018 from the VR conversion, and then in 2019, it was only running a 5-car train. The ride didn't have as much airtime as the newer RMCs, but the pacing was still very strong. Medusa hauls through its layout. The airtime it has is still pretty good though, but you are also forcefully pushed through the turns and also get some great hang time on the three inversions. Number 61, Jersey Devil Coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure. Considered by many to be the worst RMC, that's not really a fair moniker for this single rail coaster. In the back rows, Jersey Devil is very good. The first drop is one of the best on any coaster, as it aggressively launches you from your seat. Then the three inversions are great. The dive loop has some floater airtime and strong laterals, while the 0G roll and stall have some incredible hang time. Then there are a half dozen other airtime moments, especially now that the mid-course brake run doesn't slow you down. I talk about it more in a separate review, but this is a layout I don't mind seeing cloned. Number 60, Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom. This Chance Hyper GTX feels like an RMC with its powerful ejector airtime and pacing. Lightning Run charges through its layout, never missing a moment to catapult riders from their seats. And that's best encapsulated by the finale, that has some of the strongest ejector pops of any coaster. It's comical how forceful those negative Gs are when you watch off-ride. The one thing holding this coaster back for me is that it just doesn't have the same sense of speed as an RMC, even though the elements are strong. Number 59, Twisted Cyclone at Six Flags Over Georgia. This is a short but strong RMC. The 3 inversions all offer great hang time, and then every drop delivers the ejector airtime the company is known for. Then you have a signature moment in that demented wave turn that laterally ejects riders. It's RMC's best wave turn to date. Number 58, Wicked Cyclone at Six Flags New England. Wicked Cyclone is what happens when you add a third lap to Twisted Cyclone. This coaster does lose a lot of speed in the final lap, but the ride still gets you out of your seat with a super slow 0G roll and some small bunny hills. The first half is fast and furious though. The drop is the usual RMC goodness, the overbank is a gray out moment, and the first 2 inversions have nice hang time. Then you have plenty of ejector airtime, most notably on that insane outward bank. Number 57, Steel Dragon 2000 at Nagashima Spa Land. The world's longest roller coaster is a ton of fun. The long series of bunny hills in the return run offer great floater airtime for everyone, but you need to be in the back car to get the full effect of the first half. Unfortunately, you cannot select your row, but if you luck into the back, the massive drops deliver several seconds of sustained floater airtime. The coaster also can have a bit of a shuffle in the middle, but this is one ride where you will not be complaining about length. Number 56, Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland. The original B&M Giga Coaster is on the shorter side, but I like what it offers. B&M Gigas have some of the best drops in the world with the several seconds of sustained airtime, and Leviathan's is no different. Then Leviathan also has some strong camelbacks, delivering strong and sustained floater airtime, and there's also an awesome speed hill combining laterals and airtime. Leviathan feels more like a supersized B&M Hyper than the company's later Gigas, but that still makes it a very good ride. Number 55, Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia. This is one of the strongest B&M Hypers. Goliath is a neat layout that runs outside the park, and it's also more forceful than usual. This one offers a sustained floater airtime start to finish, and has much better pacing than usual because there's no mid-course brake run, and the trims do not hit. And then you also have incredible, gray-out inducing positive Gs on that downward helix turnaround. It's one of the best turnarounds B&M has ever devised. The first 3 valleys do have a noticeable rattle to them, but Goliath is otherwise perfect. Number 54, Ghost Rider at Knott's Berry Farm. Ever since GCI retracted this coaster in full, it has been running like a dream. The coaster is extremely fast and very smooth. The pacing is one of the coaster's strengths. You charge through that layout. The large drops in the first half have good airtime, particularly the drop that kicks off the second half. Then the second half flies through the wood structure, combining strong laterals with nice airtime pops. I go into more detail in a separate review, but Ghost Rider feels out of control in the best way possible. Number 53, Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City. The prototype Mach Extreme Spinning Coaster has a cool setting on a hillside. The first drop is one of the best in the world if you're in that back car. Anytime you can get sideways or backwards ejector airtime, sign me up. The rest of the ride is a blur of disorienting inversions and airtime pops. There are a few elements that feel a bit like filler, but Time Traveler's best bits are truly special, and I talk about it more in a separate review. Number 52, Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure at Islands of Adventure. This coaster is just pure fun. I love the raised riding position of the motorbike seats, as it accentuates all the dips and turns of this coaster. You then have a whopping 7 launches. Most have a good kick to them, and the final one is very powerful. The coaster is super long, giving some weak airtime pops and forceful turns along the way. Plus some surprises I do not want to spoil. And the theming also elevates this coaster. I have a separate review going into more detail, and while it pains me to say this, Hagrid's is indeed superior to Dueling Dragons. Number 51, Nemesis at Alton Towers. This legendary B&M invert has a super unique setting and layout. Nemesis is built underground in a series of trenches, so the coaster builds speed as it goes. All 4 inversions are very snappy, and I particularly love the sequence when you fling around an aggressive corkscrew, transition into a gray out inducing tight downwards helix, and then whip through a 0G roll. Nemesis is short, but this coaster packs a mighty punch while also creating some awesome visuals. I have a separate review, but you won't ride another coaster quite like this anywhere else. Those are the 50 coasters that claim spots 100 through 51 in my personal list. Check back tomorrow for the top 50. Or if you're watching this later, the full list may be posted. Let me know what you think about this list or any of the coasters I mentioned down in the comments. If you enjoyed this countdown, I'd appreciate if you gave this video a like and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.